Hey, everybody, welcome back to another edition of Bold Predictions here at Inside Nebraska. With me, as always, is Steve Marek and Tim Vergeese. I'm Zack Carpenter, and guys, it's a bye week edition of Bold Predictions, mid season BPs. Last year, I can't remember what I can't remember what specifically we did, but I remember them being unsuccessful bold predictions. I know Greg Smith, shout out Greg. Hope you're listening. I know he said his prediction was Nebraska would win all of their remaining 5 games or 4 games, and then they went 0-4. So it's like, all right, not the most successful, but up until that trip to Michigan State, things were looking up. Things are looking up right now. Things are trending in a better direction than they were last year. 5-3 at the time of at the time we did that, I believe, and 5-1 now as Nebraska is in the midst of its bye week before. That was a ranked matchup against Indiana. 6-0 Indiana versus 5-1 Nebraska. Almost a ranked matchup. Indiana is tied, three-way tie for 18th in the country, and Nebraska is essentially the 27th ranked team, the second highest in the others receiving votes category. So maybe it winds up being a top 25 matchup. Who knows how things go down this week in college football. Speaking of this week in college football, before we get into Nebraska, Steve, Ohio State. I'm gonna throw something at you. I'm gonna throw something at both of you. Ohio State, 3-point favorite, going up to Oregon. Thoughts, final score prediction. What we got? I think throwing you guys
Man,
off.
I don't know. I saw somewhere, and it makes a lot of sense that the Big Ten schools, if they're like doing that weird West Coast swing where they're like traveling 2 time zones, the team that's doing that is not faring very well. Shocker.
It's one in, I believe it's 1-7 or 1-8 for
Yeah.
teams traveling 2 time zones over or more.
Yep. So if that rings true, I guess Oregon is going to get that win. But I don't know. I'll just go with Ohio State. I think they've looked solid all season. Gonna get that run game going. With old Chip calling the plays. So I don't know. I think it's going to be an interesting game for sure. Close game. Maybe. So yeah. I mean the travel thing is just becoming a thing to me. I mean it's got to be hard for kids to travel that far. And be
Yeah,
asked
we
to win
saw
a football game on the road.
Washington going to Rutgers, and they kept it close. I mean, 3-point
Yeah.
loss. We're going to see that. Like you said, Ohio State, Oregon. Nebraska's going to have that at USC this year. I believe. Yeah, that's the only one that they're going to have to do that for
Hmm.
this year because they have Eastern time zone against Indiana, Eastern against Ohio State. And I believe that's it. So Nebraska's
Hmm.
not going to run into that problem. But speaking of travel time, Tim, Steve has Ohio State over Oregon. Looking at Boise State at Hawaii. Boise State's a 20.5 point favorite at Hawaii. What do you got
Dang.
there? Who do you think is going to win that one?
Oh, Boise State, and I think Ashton Genty's going to be benched at halftime again. Like I
Oh,
think they're just
come
going to put
on,
him,
man. No.
which
There-
sucks. But I want him to, I want him to get as many yards as possible. But I think he racks up another 180 plus at by half.
There's a reason I bring that up. I don't know, Tim. Do you know that Steve used to or still is or used to be a big Hawaii fan?
Yes, yes. And
Yeah.
unfortunately,
Yeah, it is unfortunate.
Yeah, I just got myself a PS5 and we're gonna fire up the NCAA 25 here sometime this week. I don't know. I've had the thing for 2 weeks. I haven't set it up yet because I was gonna do some just messing around with it, see if it helps me at all, like understand Nebraska's team even like a little better even, or just have some fun, just like to blow off some steam. Haven't done it yet, but maybe I fire up Hawaii, Boise State if I get that set up in time. But I like throwing you guys off with things that I just know out of absolutely nowhere. And Steve's got Ohio State. I've got Ohio State too, because if I don't totally know, I'm just going with the favorite. That's the bottom line. If you don't know, just pick the team. That's the favorite. I wonder if Nebraska's going to wind up being they'll probably be like a I don't know, 3.5 point underdog going against at Indiana. I right after the Northern Iowa game, Tim, I pegged the Illinois game. I pegged that spread like almost spot on, and the over under almost spot on. I was like a half point off, so maybe throwing that one up in the air. But you can tell it's a bye week because I'm personally going all over the place with these. No direction for this show, no direction whatsoever. But Nebraska headed in the right direction. Steve, when you're looking at these last six games, I think everyone knew this was going to be the toughest stretch. No one believed that Rutgers was going to be any type of easy matchup at all. Like we all, I think what happened on Saturday, or at least just matchup wise, we knew it was going to be that type of game, that sort of tone, that um and the Indiana game, I think, is one that um a lot of people sort of overlooked going forward. Like when the schedule came out, penciled that in. Maybe even some people put it in pen as a Nebraska win. I actually had Indiana as a loss for Nebraska, and the Ohio State game as a loss for Nebraska, and still at 9-3 in my preseason predictions, and I had them at 5-1 coming into going into the Indiana game. Just got the picked them to lose to Colorado and beat Illinois. Got those flip flop, but either way, 5-1. I know you guys have done a lot of shows this week. What first thoughts on, or just number one thought, anything that comes to mind about the last 6 game stretch here, or even these next two, because it's going to be sort of a mini gauntlet.
Yeah. The first thing that I kind of think of with this Indiana matchup is at the beginning of the season, nobody probably really saw this game and thought it was going to be a big game in the Big Ten, but it's turning out to be, for sure, with Indiana going, lossless, winning all 6 games. They're looking good right now, but the thing with them is they haven't played a defense like Nebraska, so it's going to be a big game for Indiana, but it's also a big game for Nebraska going on the road to Bloomington against a opponent that has some momentum behind it, some wins behind it. They just have a little bit of juice to that program. So credit to Kurt Signetti and what he's done coming over from James Madison and kind of just transitioning the success that he had over there to Bloomington, a football program that kind of needs a lot of that kind of just mojo or something like that just to get going again. And
you guys talked about confidence boost early in the season. I mean, 6-0. I mean, Kurt Signetti wasn't shy. He wasn't bashful. No. He was himself going into Big Ten media days. And then you talked about something that Nebraska needed was early wins to sort of have that proof of concept.
Yeah, absolutely. And my main thing with this game is just Nebraska's defense and how it's going to handle Indiana's offense, which to this point has been consistent in putting up points on every opponent that they played. Now, again, going back to the defense, Indiana has not played a defense like Tony White's. So which one's going to come out on top? That's what I'm going to be most interested in, I guess.
Yeah, Tim, you said it was going to be a shootout. Like you could foresee a shootout when these two teams square off in a couple weeks.
Yeah, it's the only thing we haven't seen from Nebraska this year is being able to keep up with a team that is also able to put up points. And I think Indiana is, and I think we learned a lot about the ceiling of this Indiana team and how good they are when they go up against this Nebraska defense. Because if they put up, again, like they've been averaging at least 36 points per game. So if Nebraska they have something similar, I think you have to mark them as legit. I just think for Nebraska's offense, it's on them to keep responding if they get into that type of situation, and you're going to have to do that a couple times this year. I think Nebraska's offense has not been the most consistent this year, just in terms of finishing out games and playing 4 straight quarters of good football. They're going to have to be against Indiana, against Ohio State, against USC, against Wisconsin, against Iowa. Like there's a stretch here coming up where it's like, okay, what they've done so far won't do. They'll have to do more.
Yeah, we talked about. I don't know if you guys talked about it on your guys' show that's coming out, because you did two-part midseason review. So that's why we don't have to dive too far into the specifics on offense or defense. The offense came out on the offensive show for the Nebraska football show you guys do. That came out today or on Wednesday, and the defensive is coming out today on Thursday when you guys are listening to this show, watching this
next
episode.
Day, Thursday and Friday.
Thursday, Friday.
Yep.
Okay.
A lot of pods, a lot of days.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. It was over our. Yeah. Okay. I misread it. I misread the little show rundown on our YouTube. It was a general overview that went live Wednesday, midseason offense review Thursday, midseason defense review Friday. So encourage you guys to listen to those shows. Again, the Nebraska football show on our Inside Nebraska YouTube channel. So we don't have to go dive too far into specifics today, because you get plenty of info from from these guys over there. So, Steve, you guys, I bet you guys didn't make too many predictions or proclamations on those shows. So now give me a prediction for the rest of the season. It can be anything. You can go anywhere, offense, defense, special teams. What do you got? What's your one bold prediction that you're coming away with going into the back half?
Yeah, my one bold prediction, just thinking about the rest of the season, I was trying to think of a good one, and it's probably not a good one, but I kept thinking to myself, like, who's really stood out to me through the first 6 games of this season? And like, Nebraska's defense really good, right? Who's been really good on the defense? Ty Robinson, who's been really good on the defense? Nash Hutmaker, all those guys, household names that we already know. But what about John Bullock? I don't think really a lot of people thought John Bullock was going to be playing at an all Big Ten caliber level this season, but
Scott Frost certainly didn't.
I definitely think he has. He is leading the team in tackles with 33. He's second in tackles for loss with 5. He's doing things in pass coverage too, which, he's a former safety. So I guess that makes sense. He has 3 pass breakups on the season. He has a pick 6. He picked off Hudson Card, ran it back for a touchdown. He is doing things like teaching tape strip tackles or strip fumbles against Illinois, and the offense uses that takeaway and scores a touchdown or scores points. He's just been everywhere. I feel like he's fast, he's violent, he's sideline to sideline, he's confident. I don't know. My bold prediction: John Bullock, second team All Big Ten at the end of the season. So, I didn't want to do something with Ty Robinson, of course, All Big Ten caliber. Nash Hutmaker, of course, All Big Ten caliber. Tommy Hill, he was another one preseason where everybody thought he was going to be an all conference player. Unfortunately, he's dealing with that plantar fascia in his foot. So, yeah, I just think there's another one that's kind of emerged, and it's John Bullock right in the middle of that defense. I think he's been so good for Tony White.
He's been an explosive player on that defense.
Yeah.
I mean, he's carrying over last year. And I said the Scott Frost comment just because how impressive it is that he could have that John Bullock could turn himself in from a walk on. What he started at safety, then was moved to nickel, or vice versa. But either way, he wasn't playing any.
His background as a walk on Johns is a little hazy. I think I originally thought he came in as a linebacker and then moved to safety and then moved back to linebacker, but maybe he was a DB the whole way. I don't know.
Either way, he got in on like a few special team snaps, 0 defensive snaps, and then one off season earns a scholarship, becomes a starter, becomes one of the most consistent players on one of the best defenses in the Big Ten last year, and carries it over this year. He's taken his game to a whole new level. He also had the best quote of the post game presser at Purdue, in my opinion, when he said it was time to nut up, and then you could tell there's I don't know, it was a small moment, but it looked like he was like, should I have said that or whatever. Yeah. And a lot of times, I know Dylan Raiola and Jamal Banks were over on the side, sitting down, watching John's presser, waiting for his to be done. And I looked over, and there's not even a sign of them smirking or smiling or anything. Like, haha, did John just say that? I think it wasn't a sign, but it was a reminder that this team respects the hell out of that guy. He's become one of those voices in that locker room, and just that rise, I think, is really it's something that I think fans he's become a fan favorite, because what this program used to be so not reliant upon, but what was such a big aid in their success building up is that walk-on program, something that Nebraska is very prideful in, and he's sort of the shining beacon of that can still contribute to a successful team in the Big Ten in the country. I think it's an example of why the walk-on program or the death of the walk-on is God, I don't want that to happen, because you have stories like John Bullock.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. And before we move on to Tim's bold prediction, I should note that in order for John to, make me look smart and earn at least the second team All Big Ten selection, Nebraska as a team needs to have the wins behind it, because we know last year, Ty Robinson, Nash Hutmaker, they were all Big Ten caliber, first, second team, whatever you want, but Nebraska just had 5 wins. And so you're not going to it's just not going to happen with defensive players, on a 5-win team. They're not going to, even if they deserve it, which I thought both Ty and Nash did. You just need to have the wins behind it. So if Nebraska continues to win, makes a bowl, gets up near the 8, 9, win mark at the end of the season, I think John Bullock deserves it if he continues to play like he is.
Yeah, he was one of the. I think he was the only player in the Big Ten with multiple sacks, and at least one interception, at least one forced fumble, and then he also had a touchdown, a defensive touchdown to boot.
Yeah.
So first half, I think he would probably be. He's in the running at least for Nebraska's defensive MVP. I think he would be up there at least as some sort of whether it's first, second, or third team All Big Ten from the first half. If we're handing out those awards and doing a deep dive on it. But Tim, when we transition into you, because I think whether it's offense or defense, I think you have a pretty good handle on we've all come close to our bowl predictions being right. And every time Tim had the two special teams touchdowns as his bowl prediction going into the Rutgers game, and he was 2 yards away. He was a Nate Borkacher tackle away from getting one of them. And then there's another one blocked. Then we see the fake pass. And it's like that should have gone for it, that or could have gone for a touchdown. Like, man, all right, he was spot on, whether you got it exactly right or not.
Real close.
The process was there, the results almost, but the process was there. You guys talk about process all the time. So what do we got on the docket for the second half of the season?
Yeah, I've got right now Nebraska doesn't have a single receiver over 300 receiving yards, but I predict by the end of the year they have three that clear 500. I think the two of them feel like Jamal Banks, Isaiah Neyor almost. I think at least one of those guys for sure clears that 500-yard mark. I think if Nebraska gets to the record they want this year, one of those guys has to clear 500 receiving yards this season. For the third one, it's Ja'Cory Barney and Jalen Lloyd kind of battling it out for that third spot right now. Jalen Lloyd's at 181 yards. Ja'Cory Barney's at 149 yards. For all-purpose yards, he's got a little more just because all the rushes he's done. So this is truly, I'm solely just saying receiving yards, not factoring in Barney's all-purpose yards. But I do think Nebraska gets three, whether that's Lloyd, who steps up into a bigger role and starts to be more of that deep threat that we saw from last year, now in the backstretch of the year, or it's Barney. I think one of those guys joins Banks and Neyor as 500-yard receivers. And I think for Nebraska down the stretch, they like I said earlier, like they're going to play some of these games where the offense has to keep responding. And I think this bye week's big for Dylan to kind of figure out, and the offense as a whole to figure out what they like, what they don't like, what they want to keep, what some of their go-to plays when they're trying to make deep plays work, some of their go-to plays. And so I think the offense is going to come out of this bye week with a better handle, better feel of what they want, and Dylan specifically. And I think that's going to lead to more success through the air through the second half.
Yeah, we've seen it now. And anytime Dylan's throwing it downfield or he's extending plays, who does he look toward more often than not is Isaiah Neyor, and then now Jamal Banks the last couple of games. I know sort of slow start for Jamal Banks. I mean, we saw him, I think us and probably all of Nebraska media saw Banks as the possession guy, like the chains mover. And he started to come alive. Two of the last three games, he was the leading receiver, 94 yards against Illinois, 82 yards against Purdue. And Dylan's that back shoulder throw is becoming sort of a common theme, whether even if it's to Ja'Cory Barney against Rutgers in the middle of the field, Steve. I mean, he threw that, he looked over at you and you're like, yep, back shoulder to the middle of the field. All right, do it.
Why not?
Why not?
Why not? I can do it, so might as well do it. But yeah, it's going to be fun to see how he responds from that Rutgers game because he wasn't himself. I don't know what the deal was, but he was so hesitant, turning down open receivers for more contested throws.
I think you guys were right on the money in assessing that with the interception. I didn't know it was an RPO, but I just knew that it was a too high safety look. He relies heavily on one of his best traits, and that's pre-snap reading defenses. And then he read the too high. Then he has to take his eyes off the field for longer than he wanted to at the snap, and then he didn't see the second safety rotate down and just throws it, telegraphs it right to Rutgers defender. And after that, it wasn't directly after that. I mean, the next drive, the next pass, they had four run plays in a row after the defense gave him the ball back, and then his next throw was that strike on the deep over to Jamal Banks, 31 yards. And but after that ensuing drive, I think you saw him Um, you saw him get frustrated. You saw him a little just completely off balance, or like just I think Rutgers maybe it was something they were doing defensively with the looks, switching it up, and had him not either confused or not confident in the looks he was getting. So he didn't. I don't know um, if he just wasn't confident in the take what's there, maybe whatever. Maybe he was a little scrambled or something. I don't know. But I thought you guys were spot on when you were detailing that on the Nebraska football show that went up on Wednesday.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, games like this are going to happen, and unfortunately, he is who he is. He has the last name that he does, and so everybody's going to be expecting just perfect games every time. But I mean, come on, he's a 19-year-old true freshman. He's playing his first season of college football. Let's cut him a break. He can throw an interception, and we're all going to be okay. Like the offense is
Yeah,
going to be okay.
and
The sun's going to come up. It's like he's learning through this thing. Like he's a great quarterback. We know he's allowed to make mistakes. He's allowed to throw that RPO right to a defensive player and learn from it. So it's good that it's happening right now and not against, I don't know, Iowa when a bowl trip is on the line or something.
yeah, and like for me personally, it's like I haven't seen fans freak out about it. I feel like everyone's been
Mm-hmm.
relatively tempered about Dylan and expectations for
It was a
him
good thing to
through the,
see that it wasn't
which is
just
good. Which is good, but also I think it just should be because I again I know how people get like I mean look at what Patrick Mahomes is doing in the NFL, right? It's not his best season by any means. It's a very pedestrian year. He's missing throws. That's the best quarterback I've seen with my eyes, and he's doing what he's doing. So quarterbacks, even the best of them, have bad days, have bad stretches. It happens, but I kind of count on Dylan to bounce back specifically against an Indiana team where there's going to be some
Mm-hmm.
opportunities in the past game against an Ohio State team, where he'll be challenged, but I think he's going to be up for that. Those are the type of games he came to Nebraska to play in and try and win. USC as well. I think those games he's gonna. I'm curious, what the moment does for Dylan now that he's experienced a few of these under the lights games. Some of these moments where the spotlight is on him, and now that he knows, on top of having experienced those things, now that he knows he doesn't have to be Superman for Nebraska, like how he continues to grow and develop moving forward.
yeah. I mean, I'm as a for a long time suffering Chiefs fan. So I was 9 years old until the first year of Mahomes. It was just playoff heartbreak after playoff heartbreak, embarrassment, blown leads, whatever. Um, and then they win a Super Bowl. Then they go back to the Super Bowl the next year. The Bengals game, they're up 21-3 at halftime, or at 21-3 at one point, and then they lose that game. And I remember afterward just feeling like yeah, dejected, but also it's like, man, we lost that game. Become like the number one reason we lost that game is because Mahomes did not play well. Like, you know what? I can take it. If that's the number one reason we lost, then I'm completely okay with that because he has pulled wins out of his ass and like has been the number one reason we won so many games. It's like, all right, that's cool with me. It's not because of this or that. It wasn't penalties or whatever you want to throw in there. It's like, all right. And then he comes back the next 2 years and wins back-to-back Super Bowls. So just more to the point of, yeah, a really talented quarterback who has been
Mm-hmm.
one of the primary reasons for, if not the number one reason, it's at least it would have to be arguably the number one reason that Nebraska's sitting here at 5-1.
And
Because
taking care of the ball too. Like they're
yeah,
+6 right now. That's tied for 11th in the nation. Last year they were second to last in the entire country with turning the ball over. So I mean it's night and day different with the way this offense is protecting the ball compared to last year. And a lot of that has to do with the person playing quarterback also. So
yeah, Nebraska had at this point, I just wrote it the other day, they were -7. Uh they were -7 in turnover margin at the midway point of last season, through 6 games going into the Illinois game. And now they're what, +6, is it you said?
yeah,
So
+6 right now.
yeah, the difference is just astronomical. They've had 3 interceptions. Let me find the numbers because it's killing me. Um, they have three interceptions so far and 1 fumble lost. They only have 4 fumbles total. And last year they had they're
I think they
they're
lost 15.
minus
Lost
8
15
in
last year.
turnover margin last year, 15 turnovers, 8 interceptions, 7 lost fumbles, and this year they're +6. And um, what was the fumble stat you said, Steve?
Oh no, I thought they lost way more than what you said, but I could be wrong. I don't know.
I can't find it now, so we're just gonna. I'm completely fumbling this literally as we're talking about it. Looking at where I had the stats, but um, oh well, they had a lot of fumbles last year. They had a lot of fumbles, and then they lost a lot of them too. But they were even getting lucky on a lot of those. They had seven lost fumbles last season at the midway point, and I believe 15 or 16 total fumbles. This year they only have 4 total fumbles and only 1 lost. So
Yeah,
it's
so
just
they lost 15
astronomical.
last year. I found that. It was lost 15 last year.
The whole I'm just talking about the midway point at the
Oh,
midseason
okay.
point.
Yeah, gotcha.
It's and it was like wow, this is as disastrous as it could be from a ball security standpoint. And that's like you said, it's completely flipped. I think relatively speaking, you would grade the offense through the midseason this year as an A or A+ if you're comparing it just to last year.
Hmm.
Then I don't know, B+, A-, something like that for the defense. And then special teams, a non-Bushini grade would be an F or a D- or something. Like they
Hmm.
actually probably not, probably a D because they haven't had issues with fielding punts, and Bushini has been just one that helped win them a game in a massive way. So I think that would be the grade for special teams. But we're running out of time, and I haven't even given my bold prediction yet of Nebraska's going to have a 100-yard rusher in a single game that's not a quarterback. The last time Nebraska had a 100-yard non-quarterback rush for 100 yards in a single game was Anthony Grant against Minnesota 2 years ago on November 5th, 2022. Anthony Grant ran for 115 yards in a loss. Since then, no running back has reached looks like not even 90 yards. Their biggest single game rushing yards leader as a running back was Emmett Johnson, 84 against Wisconsin. Chuba Purdy had 105 yards against Wisconsin last year, and like 55 of that came on one play. Um, and beyond that, Harburg had 157 yards rushing against Louisiana Tech. 98 almost got there against NIU, but no running back. So I think if we're looking at the schedule of the last 6 games, USC is probably the most vulnerable from that set from the rushing defense standpoint. They're 80 tied with Cincinnati for 87th in the country, toward the bottom third in all of FBS with 158.6 rushing yards allowed per game, also giving up 8 rushing touchdowns. And that 158.6 mark is 17th out of 18 Big Ten teams. So they're the most vulnerable. But I think that would be Nebraska's game plan is we're going to go in there, we're going to establish the run, try to be the physical dominant team. And we'll see where it is. I'm probably gonna go with Emmett Johnson. I think Emmett Johnson's the one who is more going to be more prone for those break off runs, escaping from the defense, maybe a little more elusive. So in general, 100-yard rusher at running back for Nebraska in a single game this season, and I'll say Emmett Johnson against USC to go more specific. We're running out of time, Steve, but I want to bring it around the little merry-go-round or ring around the rosy, whatever the hell child's game you want to say. We're going to go around final record predictions for 2024 season. 5-1 overall now, 2-1 Big Ten. And where are
Yeah,
they going to
yeah.
finish?
I think they finish 8-4 overall with a 5-4 conference record. So, I mean that would be really really good in my opinion for a football program that hasn't been to a postseason game since 2016. Hasn't gone bowling since then. Those are Mike Riley years. So, yeah, just getting back there would be just baby steps. Just baby steps. Get to the postseason and continue the upward trajectory of this program, which it's on the upward trajectory in my opinion. So, yeah, 8-4, 5-4.
We got a mute.
Oh my goodness. Are we back? I'm
And
back.
I was
There we
on
go.
mute, so I couldn't tell you that you were on mute.
We're back.
We're
I'm about
back.
8-4 as well. 8-4, just like Steve said, same conference record. I just think right now 5-1. You look at the rest of the schedule. I think it's Ohio State, USC, and then one of Indiana or Iowa. That's kind of how I see it for the losses down the stretch.
So I had them at 9-3 overall going into this all the way back in spring before spring ball began. I was thinking 8-4, 9-3, and then coming out of spring ball, all right, 9-3. And I had a win over Colorado the entire time. And then so I've been 6-0 going into Indiana, and that just didn't look right to me on paper. So I'm like, they got to have a loss in there somewhere. I don't think it's going to be to Purdue. So either Illinois or Colorado. Didn't think much of Illinois at the time. Like, all right, Colorado. I could see Travis Hunter and Shedeur Sanders getting some explosives and handing them a loss at home. I was dead wrong on that. That game got out of hand in a hurry with all the sacks and the pick six. So still having 5-1 overall. And I had the a loss at Indiana, loss at Ohio State, and a loss at Ohio or at USC. So I'm like, that's 8-4. No, I'm sticking with my 9-3 overall. So I switched last minute to USC, to Nebraska beating USC at USC. And then USC comes out and beats LSU, rises all the way to number 11 in the country. So didn't look great for a minute, but I mean, it's college football. Like we always say, things happen, you know, they're vulnerable. They're vulnerable to a couple of Nebraska strengths. So I still have them at 9-3 overall. And what would that put them in the Big Ten?
6-3.
6-3. Oh, 6-3 Big Ten. Yeah. So there you go. There we have it. That's what if start your bowl plans now, your bowl trip plans now for something on New Year's December 30th or New Year's Eve or New Year's Day, if you're gonna listen to us. So we're running out of time. We're gonna get kicked off here. So just gonna wrap up quickly for Steve Mark, Tim Verghese. I'm Zach Carpenter, and we'll catch you guys again next time.